Hello, welcome to another episode of Zap Chat. I'm your host, Zach Probst. Today is going to be a little interesting topic. But before we do, we're going to go to our top 10 list. Normally, I would do it before the end of the show, but the topic I want to discuss is a pretty big topic. So before I do, let's get to the top 10 list. And today's list is top 10 movies based on video games. This is actually the movies that I really enjoy, but most people would be really surprised with my topic. For instance, most movies based on video games are not so great, and the ones that I have in my top list, you'd be really surprised. Another reason would be is one of them is not a live action, which is a little cheating because it's supposed to be all live action movies. But once we get to that title, you'll find out why I like this movie. And I would highly recommend it. And I've repeated it from previous episode. For this one, it was a little difficult for me to decide at the top 10 because there just weren't that many that I personally enjoy. One thing I should mention, for one of the honorable mentions, is Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. I really enjoy that movie, but story-wise, it's okay. The downside is I'm not a fan of the villain of the movie, and I just wasn't really. I just watched the movie not too long ago, and the special effects itself is amazing. Back in the day, it was like the top of the line CGI movie film. So I can't really complain of the movie at all. Just the story concept and the live action casts were well done, and you even got the cast from the leading role, which I can't remember her name. I would have to look it up and see, but she was also she plays the badass woman in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I really love her performance, and she does a great job. So anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about our top 10 list, and I'll try to explain it to you guys on certain movies on why this is my top list. So number 10, the 2018 movie of Tomb Raider. I was really surprised about this new Tomb Raider take. I was really surprised that the writer of this movie did a lot of their homework, and the director did a really smart thing of approaching the tone of it. What they're focusing is it's going to be based on the reboot of the Tomb Raider franchise, and I absolutely loved it. I love the tone, and I love that the more darker tone, and it has that intensity, and seeing Lara Croft becoming the Lara Croft for Tomb Raider, and it's really fun. And I played all 3 games of the reboot, and the last one I was kind of like, the last one's okay. The first 2 are amazing, but the third one, it was okay. The story was kind of very typical Tomb Raider story. I kind of wish they could have gone let's say, I was hoping it would go a more closer approach to the main villain that Croft is going after for the past few games. It's been a while I played it, but overall it's really good. But anyways, the movie is amazing, and the actress, I don't know. I might have to look it up and see real quick. Her name is, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Alekia Vikander. Alekia Vikander. I hope I pronounced it right. But yeah, she did a really great job playing Croft. I would be looking forward to more future of Tomb Raider movies. And yes, I did hear that they're making another sequel if things all go well. I think the box office did pretty decent, but I don't think it was a strong enough box office performance than the previous Tomb Raider movies. So I'm really hoping it would turn out really good. The story wise, they of course they had to change it just so it's new and fresh for the audience. But I kind of wish they could have the same story as the games. For example, I guarantee you that there are fans out there who would really love to see the exact same story from the game and put it in the movie. I guarantee that are kept begging for that, and so do I. And I do not mind that because I really want the same story to be put into a live action. But if they're going to keep getting new, fresh ideas of the story, which is a good thing too, but sometimes it doesn't work that way. There are certain movies, or there are certain games that you can get a fresh start from scratch to make new and fresh on movies based on video games. But unfortunately, not all of it works. So for doing the Tomb Raider reboot, I was hoping it'd be the exact same story as the first game, but sadly, it just wasn't. They got it close. Trapped on the island and can't make it out. There's trouble, but they've switched it around just a little bit to have that same tone as the first game, but going to a whole other direction, which I'm okay with, but still, I prefer the same exact story. Let's see, number 9. This movie I've not seen in a long time, but maybe someday I'll rewatch it again. And number 9 is Silent Hill. Now, this movie, I was really surprised how it turned out. Let's see here. It has been like years and years since I first watched it. I think this movie came out in, it was like 2007. The tone of it is exactly like the first game and the second game. They really have the exact same tone as the game. The nightmare creature like in the game are very close. And whoever came up with that idea really kept it closer to the games. The story wise, I believe it was a pretty decent story. And the special effects was really spot on. And yes, they ended with a cliffhanger to come out with the next movie. I was thrilled with the idea, and they did make the sequel, but it was a very big disappointment. I didn't pay attention watching the new Silent Hill live action movie, but it did left out. Well, it did kind of left out from the first movie, but we won't talk about the sequel. We're gonna focus on the first one. The first one, the tone of it, and the performance and the intensity is amazing, and you can also buy on Blu-ray. They just announced a re-release of the movie Silent Hill you can buy from the company Shout Factory, which is a company where they focused on cult classic movies and like horror flick movies. And I think they own some of the Japanese animes as well. And their intention is to come out with physical Blu-ray movies. And they're an amazing company. I've owned several of them. I own a couple of horror films, to be exact. Specifically, they're called Scream Factory, which is it's the exact same company. They just call it Scream Factory because it focuses on more of a horror flick. So I've owned a couple of them. Let's see. In the bookshelf that I'm looking at right now, I have Lord of the Illusions, Army of Darkness, and The Lawnmower Man, which is another odd movie. Slither, yes, the famous movie that James Gunn wrote and direct. That is a great movie. And so I own those movies by Shout Factory, which they basically re-released it and came out with with adding more special features that like a cast reunion kind of way, talking about and discussing the new movie, which is really nice. So for Silent Hill, Shout Factory were able to get the rights of that movie and have it re-released. And I think it costs about roughly $20 to get it online. And I'm hoping later in the future I would get my hands on that title. But as of right now, I just have one too many things I got going on, and I can't always have everything, basically. but I would love to get my chance to own that copy of Silent Hill someday. So, because I do miss watching that movie, and I also want to rewatch it again. It's a good movie. Number 8. This is gonna surprise you guys, so bear with me on explaining why do I like this movie. Number 8, Doom. You see what I mean? Okay. Number 8, Doom. So, bear with me on this. This stars Dwayne Johnson and Carl Urban, and I do own it on Blu-ray, and I've watched it several times. And the reason why I love this movie, it's because it reminded me one of those really bad B-movie films. For those of you who don't know B-movie films are where they make really low budget, really bad cheesy movies, like really bad scripted and bad acting and bad action and just over the top silliness. One of those types of movies. For the movie Doom, it reminded me those type of movies, and some of the effects of like one of those main creatures you see in the game are pretty close to the same. I get what they were going for, and those really big creatures you see in the game, they were using practical effect puppeteer, and I don't really hate it. I actually like the idea because that reminds me of like one of those really bad movie flicks, and I really don't mind it. And the movie had this famous scene where they have like first-person shooter that you can watch in live action, and that scene is by far the best part in the whole movie. I was really, really surprised that they actually did that, and that was the reason why I wanted to go see it. So for the movie Doom, the story it's not bad. It's really not a bad idea. When I was replaying the game Doom and comparing it for the movie, I can understand why they wanted to go a fresh new tone of the story. Because in the video game from the earlier ones, this came out just before Doom 3. Yeah, the live action movie came out just before Doom 3. So Doom 3 had a plot story, and the previous games don't really have a story. Not exactly. So for doing a live action Doom movie, it makes sense. The previous Doom games like 1 and 2 and Final Doom, there was like really no plot story. Just basically you played a guy, you go in and blow shit up, basically. So pardon my language. So that's why I really like this movie a lot. It just reminded me one of those bad, over-the-top, action-packed movies, like a B-movie film. And I personally enjoyed it. Number 7 is... number 7 is Hitman. Now, they made 2 movies. Not the one from 2000, was it 16 or 17, I think? I didn't care for much about that one. Hitman Agent 47. That was the newer version of it. That one I did not care for. But the one before that, that one I really enjoyed. And whenever I played it, my dad would kick back and watch that movie, and he absolutely loved that movie, and so do I. And it's really not that bad. It stars Timothy Oldman, which is the main guy playing Hitman, and his performance, I think he pulled it off. His tone of it may not be exactly like the game. The main character, he's mostly kind of his facial face with the eyes and the eyebrows. In some shots, he pulls it off, but he sometimes goes off character in the scene. And comparing that to the video game, he's always angry. He never changes his facial expression for the game. He's always kind of serious and always angry, but mostly serious. For Timothy Oldman's performance, he doesn't always stay serious. He kind of changes the tone, going off character, and I was okay with that, but I don't know. I kind of understand why. The story wise, it's not that bad. I really enjoyed the story very much. And the I can't remember who wrote and produced or who wrote and directed, um, but I do know that it is produced by Luc Besson. Luc Besson, for those who don't know, he's done like really incredible movies. He wrote the script for doing Taken from starring Liam Neeson, and he wrote and directed The Fifth Element. He did Leon the Professional. He did La Femme de Nikita, which is a really famous French movie. And oh gosh, what was it? His most recent one he did, Valkyrie. Valkyrie, yeah, Valkyrie. I believe that's the name, Valkyrie. Um, Valkyrie is an incredible movie, and I really, really enjoy that movie a lot. And so for Luc Besson being involved in producing the movie, that makes sense. For overall, I really liked what they were going for in the movie. So it just goes a little bit better than Doom. Put it that way, just a little bit more better than Doom. So that goes number 7 on my list. Now this next one, number 6, Need for Speed. That one, I gotta tell you guys, I only seen it once in the movie theater. I kept trying to buy the Blu-ray like a long time ago, but the price, it stayed for like $20 to $30 for the longest time, and the price had never dropped at all, and that really bummed me out because I really wanted it. And ever since then, I just completely forgot about it and never bothered to buy it on Blu-ray. This movie, I was really, really surprised. It's starring Aaron Paul, which is the guy from Breaking Bad, and I really surprised of how good this movie is. The story element was okay, but oh man, the action scene is amazing. I'm really glad I did this. Now you're probably wondering, going, "Oh, I bet the race car scenes are like really bad." I'm like, no, they were going big in this idea. The car chase and the racing scenes, they're not CGI. They're actual real cars driving on the road going fast. So this is nothing compared to Fast and Furious, which everything is in special effects or over the top action. No, they really kept it practical effect. It is real, no CGI, and it's really, really amazing. I was like, wow, they did an incredible job of having as real as possible of the cars. The story is okay, and with Aaron Paul performance, his acting is let's say it's a little over the top. I would say one of those exquisite acting kind of way. So his acting performance, it's mediocre. Not great, but it's pretty average. So I can't really complain about him because I really like Aaron Paul in this movie. Let's see. Oh, number 5. Yes, I just watched this not too long ago. Detective Pikachu. For a while, as we all have been there before, when we were kids, we all been a big fan of Pokemon. We've all were playing cards, and we've all tried to play like card playing games and just basically having fun. And it's, just at that time it was a lot of fun. And even my cousin collected the cards as well, and I used to collect some of it as well, and even had like a couple of animated movies, and the TV show lasted a long time. And the video games, it's still ongoing. They're still making more games to this day. For Detective Pikachu, I was really surprised that they had Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu. That was the only reason why I wanted to see the movie, is because of Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu. The story was very well done, and the special effects are amazing. I was really blown away of how deep they gone their research on having some of the Pokemon characters to have fur, even with Pikachu has fur, and that kind of throws off a lot of people, but it works. They really went carefully designing each of those characters and how they behave and how they react and how they move. They were like getting ideas from real life animals. So the CGI guys did a great job. They know what they're doing, and they got their research just right. And I really liked what they did. And I'm hoping in the future they'll make even more money, and the story might improve as well. But Detective Pikachu is definitely on the lines of one of the best movies based on the video game that Rotten Tomatoes gave it a much higher rating. And I believe it's one of the highest ratings than any other movies based on video games. At least I think so. Let's see. Number four. Number four was tricky because they made multiple sequels, and I had a trouble time deciding on one. So instead, I'm just going to say all in one together, just an all-in-one story. But we'll break it down on some of them real quick. Number four is Resident Evil. Now, Resident Evil is surprisingly been, how should I put it? It's been a long journey making multiple sequels, and they've made about 6 of them. And what's the actor's name? Melina Jovovich? I think that's how you pronounce it. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But anyway, they made 6 of them, and had Paul W.S. Anderson wrote and direct almost most of them. He only directed parts 1, 4, 5, and 6. But the rest of them, he wrote every movie. He didn't get around writing, or he didn't get around directing 2 and 3. He only got involved in just writing the script. So he made all 6 movies, and the story keeps going on and on and on. And some of them is a hit or miss. So real quickly, the first one really did a great job making it as a zombie movie. Not a video game, just a zombie flick. And I really enjoyed the first movie a lot. And it will be in my list as a classic movie, for sure. The second one was, it was okay. It still had some really good moments, and the tone of it was exactly like the game. And there are some moments that was like, hey, they stole the idea from the previous game. I would prefer that the main character doesn't steal someone else's stunt performance from the actual game, which I'll mention on one of the other movies. The second movie, it has some good moments. I'll put it that way. The third movie, now a lot of fans were really not happy with the third movie. It's because it's not anything related to the game whatsoever. They really made it a very different Resident Evil. But for me personally, and my dad as well, we absolutely loved the third one. It's just new, it's different, and everything about it is, the Resident Evil is made for the movie and not the game, like going too deep for the game. But I understand why fans would really disagree that they should have made it closer to the game. But I think the Paul W.S. Anderson wanted a whole new take on the story. He did explain a while back when he was making the first one, he did not want to have the exact same story as the game, because if he makes that into a live action movie, then everyone knows how the story ends. And he has to make it new and fresh. Which at the time, which is understandable. But in this day of world, we want that. We really do. We really, really want a movie that takes the exact same story as the game. So if somebody out there would take the exact same story from the first Resident Evil game, then you're going to be making fans super, super happy. And I'm certain in this day of age, nobody knows what the story is about from the first game at all. I'm sure there's some hardcore fans that knows the story, but for most people, including like younger viewers, nobody knows what the story's about. So I'm thinking, if the studio, like Sony Pictures, the Sony Pictures is a company where they started doing Resident Evil. If Sony would consider taking the exact same story from the first game and make it to a live action, it will work. I guarantee you it will work. It may not be a fresh idea, but as a fan like me, I really want the exact same story as the game, starting for the first one. And after that, you can pretty much do whatever you want to do sequels. But for most fans, we all want to see the exact same story as the game. And for video games nowadays, the games look like you're in the movie, which is complete opposite. And it's amazing. I really, really like the stories a lot, not only in the game, but for the live action movies from Resident Evil. So for Resident Evil movies, I completely understand why it has to be new and fresh. But we personally need a movie that's the exact same story as the games. So that's just my opinion, and I really hope that one day we get to see that happen. Now, for moving on, for 4 and 5 and 6. 4, 5, and 6, it had, let's see, I would say number 4, I would say it's my personal favorite of all the Resident Evil movies. Me personally, I really love the story. I really love what they were going for, and the tone of it got me pumped and excited. I got to see it in 3D. They used the same cameras as the Avatar movie, and it's incredible. I really love what they were going for of the 4th movie. And then they ended with a cliffhanger, which is when we got number 5. Number 5 was a big letdown. It was a complete waste of the story. I did not like 5 at all. It was really off-putting. I didn't like what they were going for and what the story had. Some good action scenes, but I did not care for part 5. And finally, we got part 6, and that one, it was a movie that we go, now we're getting to the conclusion of the story. This will be the end, and this is how the story ends. And then we're moving on to something else. So part 6 has nothing to do with any of the games whatsoever. Part 6 was exactly like part 3. The tone of it, the action, the intensity is exact same idea as part 3, just new and fresh. So part 6 was okay. I still really enjoyed it for sure, but I don't know. Number 4, I would say, is my personal favorite. I really liked the story on that one, of overall the best. Okay, moving on to the next list is number 3, the 2001 of Tomb Raider. This one is my childhood. I grew up watching the first movie a lot. I didn't put the second one in my list because the story was okay. It had a much higher budget, but it didn't really have a much stronger story approach than the first one. So that's why I want to put the first one in my list. This one is Angelina Jolie as Lara Croft. Wowzers. I love this movie so much. I absolutely love the direction they were going for. The story is very well done, and I really liked her uniform that she was wearing. She's wearing mostly darker clothing, but in the game, it's got that classic kind of a sky blue colored top with the shorts, like really short shorts, basically. But in the live action, she's wearing all black. Like just a black top and black shorts. And I do not mind it for playing Angelina Jolie, wearing her outfit. It works. So I really have no complaint about it at all. I really did not mind. And the action scenes are my favorite. It's such a 2000 tone type of movie, and I do not mind it. It is definitely my number 3 in my list. Like the best movie based on a game that I personally enjoy very much. And number 2 is Mortal Kombat. Now this one goes deep to my heart, my personal top favorite. Mortal Kombat, for those of you who don't know, this came out the same time as the Jean-Claude Van Damme of Street Fighter. I can't remember which way it came out first. I believe, what was it? I think it was Mortal Kombat that came out first. And then the Mortal Kombat. I don't remember. I'm going to have to look it up real quick. Let's see here. I just clicked the the TV show. That's right. Back in the day, we had a live-action TV show, which is pretty bad. Okay, here we go. Mortal Kombat came out in August 18, 1995. This one came out after Street Fighter. Yeah, I believe it came out about that time. So, making movies based on video games was still pretty new back in the day. And at that time, it was necessary to have appropriate for everyone to watch. They didn't want to do an R-rated movie because even though the video game back in the day was really like over-the-top bloody violence, and it was very controversial back in the day too. There were times where I was not allowed to play the game. I had a really strict mom that she would not let me play Mortal Kombat because, well, back in the day, that was how violent it was, because it just wasn't appropriate for younger kids. But nowadays, it's nothing. So for doing a live-action movie, it was necessary to do a PG-13 Mortal Kombat. And for me personally, I wasn't allowed to play the game, but I was allowed to watch the movie. And the movie, I fell in love. There's non-stop action. The story is, I would consider a cult classic movie. The story itself is really well done. I really did not mind the story at all. That is definitely a movie that should do their research to make it just right. So I really did not mind the movie at all. And this is actually directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, which is his very first movie based on a video game that he made. And I was really impressed of how this movie turned out. And to this day, it will always remain to be the classic. With some hardcore fans like me, I would say a lot of fans to this day is turned out to be a favorite of all time. And I would still watch it every single day. It is definitely considerably a classic. And now, number 1 movie based on a video game, which is going to be cheating because this is not a live action movie. This is the Japanese anime movie Street Fighter 2. That is the number 1 top 10 best movie based on a video game of all time. And this one beats Mortal Kombat. Now, the reason why I put that in my number 1 on my list is because the animation is beautifully done. It's got the best fight choreography scenes of the fights. The famous one is Chun-Li and Vega are competing in this apartment place, and it gets brutally bad. That's one of the famous fight scenes that I personally enjoyed very much. And the story is very close to the game very much. The English dub acting is surprisingly good. I was really surprised one of the voice actors appeared in the movie. The character named Fei Long, which is a Bruce Lee type character, the actor that played Fei Long is actually none other than by Bryan Cranston. Yes, that guy from Breaking Bad. That guy, Bryan Cranston. he did the voice of Phelan. And I did not know that. I looked it up and then seen who the casting. I was like, "Is that? Am I reading it right? Is that Bryan Cranston playing Phelan? That's freaking amazing!" I absolutely loved it, and I started watching back the animated movie. And I was like, It is Bryan Cranston! Holy crap! That's awesome!" I was so amazed of how awesome this movie is. And if this was made into a live action movie, please make that happen. And please make it exact same story. Everything of that movie is perfect. The tone of it, the action, the intensity. The story takes place in the 90s. So a lot of it was they put a lot of grunge songs in the animated movie for the English dub. I mean, you got like Alice in Chains playing, and I think you got Nirvana playing, and some of the more songs they use for American viewers. But I ain't complaining because I love the songs that I chose in there. And my favorite of all is a song called Ultra by KMFDM, which is the song they use from the fight scene of Chun-Li and Vega. The song they use from that scene is my favorite song of the whole movie. That song is my favorite, and I still listen to it every single time. And for those of you who don't know KMFDM, they are a foreign band from, I want to say, it's either German or Russian. I can't remember. It was either German or Russian, and they were, back in the day, in the 90s, they were huge. And their albums, they kept coming out, and their album sales started booming, and in a good way. They were really making top dollars. So the song they used for Street Fighter animated movie is my favorite. And not only that, but one of the songs called Juke Joint Jezebel, they use that song from the fight scene in the Mortal Kombat live action movie, which I just talked about not too long ago. And that one is amazing. That one's also a great song. So that's why Street Fighter 2, the animated movie, is my number one favorite of all time, because everything of that movie is perfect. And I just hope they make a movie exactly like that and not changing a thing, because it is perfectly well done movie, and it deserves credited as the best animated movie of all time. And it's even listed as, I looked it up, and it's saying it is, believe it or not, this is actually one of the first Japanese anime movies that's based on a video game and became a huge success. And to this day, it still is the best movie of all time. And there's even other animated movies such as Tekken and what's the other one? Fatal Fury, and animated titles which also based on video games. They were trying to have like a competitor kind of way, like, hey, we got other movies, we got other video games that we can make into an animated movie. And when it did came out, it wasn't as big of a performance of fan base, just as much as Street Fighter 2. So they tried, but not as much. Okay, so that is my top 10 list today, and it's already been about roughly 45 minutes of discussion. We're going to go ahead and talk about our topic today, and we're going to go through it, maybe like not too long of it. I do want to discuss why I want to talk about it. The topic today is physical media versus digital media. Now, this is of overall from like anything like movies, video games, music, books, being everything to be made into digital, and that physical forms are starting to slowly extinct. Now, this is something that me personally, I really wanted to share with you guys. I want to talk to you, why do I want not everything to be digital, in my opinion. And so let's talk about let's talk about movies for the moment. There are certain things that not everything should be digital. There are certain things that people need to be aware of. I still buy Blu-ray movies and certain DVD movies, but only because that I don't want to waste data on my internet. Not many of you guys know this, but if you go over your limit of data, you have to pay the fee of to continue your internet access of your data. And if you go over your limits, you have to pay the fee for maybe like $50 or so. I believe that was last time that happened, and it was not fun. Let's see. I wrote it down on all of this on my notebook here, and I'm trying to decide on. So, uh, let me explain to you guys why I still want to buy physical movies. Um, let's see. For example, uh, there have been some changes that need to be aware. There's this there's this movie called Sherlock Holmes. There's a certain scene where Professor Moriarty from the first movie, you don't really get to see the actor's face. All you see is a shadow. They didn't have at that time. They didn't have the right. They didn't found the actor to play Moriarty yet, but in the sequel, you definitely get to see his face. But it was a completely different actor. So for the original, they had a guy originally playing Moriarty, and I don't even know who the actor is. It was a very mysterious actor. In the sequel, they did have an actor playing Moriarty, Jared Harris. Jared Harris performed it playing Moriarty in the sequel. And the problem is, from the first one, playing Moriarty, nobody really knows who played Moriarty. They kept it pretty secret, so nobody knows who played it. So when that happened, Jared Harris redubbed his voice to use in the first Sherlock Holmes movie, which is not bad an idea, but some people like to have it original and not changing anything of the movie. And so when that happened, when you're watching the first Sherlock Holmes movie, you'll be hearing Jared Harris playing Moriarty in the first movie for just his voice. And you'll never get to hear the other voice that played originally playing Moriarty. And you're probably wondering, like, oh, it's on digital, or it's on Blu-ray, right? Well, if you own the Blu-ray, the original Blu-ray when it first came out, you'll most likely hear the original guy that did Moriarty, and not Jared Harris. But if you watch the digital format, you'll only hear Jared Harris as Professor Moriarty, and not the other guy. And that's because the company, for Warner Brothers, or any other digital media formats, they can go back and redo the movie, and that can ruin some of the fans. So, for instance, some Star Wars fans, everybody hates that George Lucas goes back in and alters the movie every time he comes out with the movie. So when a DVD came out in 2004, he went back in and altered a movie. And then when a Blu-ray came out, he did it again. He goes back in, alters the movie, and puts it in the Blu-ray. And most fans hates it. They hated that Lucas changes the movie every single time. Because with most fans, we all want to see the original Star Wars trilogy without changing a thing. We all miss that very much. But it's Lucas. He can do whatever he wants. It's his movie, and he can just mess around with it. So for doing Sherlock Holmes, it's a bit difficult to say because you can only watch Sherlock Holmes that's been refixed. So for now on, when you're watching digital medias, you only hear Jared Harris as Professor Moriarty that's been redubbed. And you'll never get to hear the original voice at all. But if you do want to own the original, you'll have to buy the movie on Blu-ray. And if you're lucky, you'll get to hear the original voice and not Jared Harris. So that depends on how you feel about it. So for that little snippet of change is okay. I'm okay with that. But if you're most fans, we all want the original. We don't want anything changes. It's necessary to have a physical movie so that way no one can go in and alter the movie that you rightfully own physically. And there are some movies out there that none of us are really happy of, that they can go in and change the movie for you. So for movie wise, it's necessary to have options. I like it that you get to have options, such as if you buy the movie, I like to own the Blu-ray, the DVD, the Ultra HD 4K disc, and digital media. So it's roughly 4 to 5 options you can choose. And I like it that way too. And even though it's a lot of money to spend, but you get to have options to watch. And I like that. I like that you get to have options, because if you only wanting to watch the movie digital, there are consequences. So let's see here. Like, for example, there's this Japanese anime series that's hugely popular. It's called Neon Genesis Evangelion. And Netflix bought the rights so they can have it available on streaming. And the problem is Netflix had to redub everything from scratch to do the English dub. And they did not have the rights from the previous English dub that we all know and familiar of. But unfortunately, they had to redub everything because they had to make it their right for it. Which is a bummer, because I really loved the original English dub and I missed that. And owning it, so by watching it, they take control of your favorite series. And not many fans are happy about it. And I'm not happy about it either. And they made some changes. And we all feel the same way. Same way how George Lucas feels alternating the movie however he wants to change. So that's a bummer. What else? If you want to buy the physical copy of Neon Genesis Evangelion, if you want to try owning the anime TV series, it's going to cost a lot of money. For every time I look it up on Amazon, on a website, I've seen people wanting to offer $200 to $300, which is a lot of money, and I'm pretty certain you can find a much better deal than that. But lately, I've not found any deals at all, and they're really hard to find nowadays. And with this day of age, like, it's almost in the year 2020. We just lost 2 video stores on my hometown because things are changing. Everybody now prefers digital medias. But for me, that's a problem, because there are consequences. And I don't like that. And I do not like having everything to be digital, because there are problems. Such as Neon Genesis Evangelion, they alter your favorite show, and Warner Brothers went back in and fixed your favorite movie, and you don't want that. There are, I can't remember what else they've altered a lot of things, but they're just consequences of to be everything digital, because the company has every right to do whatever they want. And at a certain point, if the one company no longer has access of the movies that you rightfully own, they can just take it away. I've heard about that happening before, and it's not pretty. So when that happens, it's necessary to have physical. That way, nothing bad happens. Let's say, let's say if you want to own like a Japanese anime, there are certain titles that are really hard to find, and owning it physical, it may surprise you guys, but there'd be certain titles that they'll stop manufacturing it, and the marketing value goes up because fans want to own it. And to this day, it's still pretty strong and active that fans would still buy physical DVDs or Blu-rays to own the anime series. And I would still buy it too, because I'm the same way. I still prefer buying physical stuff, especially of Japanese animes. I would prefer physical formats. Having everything to be digital, for animes, I don't know. It's nice to be everything. It's nice to have digital, but there are consequences. And as of right now, I do have Netflix, and I'm still keeping Netflix, even though the prices are slightly going higher every year. But I'm loving everything what they're doing on Netflix right now. I'm excited for the new the Dark Crystal miniseries that's going to come out on Netflix. I'm excited for The Witcher, and I'm excited for more Japanese anime shows that Netflix are getting their hands on. It's nice. And I was really surprised that they're adding more Japanese anime shows because I want to see more anime shows and I want to watch them. So I don't really mind it because, like I said, it's nice to have options. I still have Hulu, but I don't know. I for a while I kept wanting back and forth whether if I should get rid of it or not because with prices going up, it's been getting more and more difficult, and it's hard to keep up. But Hulu keeps deleting things, but adding more things. So it's a win-win. It's a win or lose scenario going on. So I still don't know if I wanted to keep it or not. But every time I go back in, I was like, oh, they have this show now. Darn it. Okay, guess I'm gonna have to keep Hulu a little bit longer. That still gets me. So Funimation, I've been really wanting to focus on more Japanese anime shows, and I really wanted to watch the more current anime series. Like for example, we had a brand new season of Attack on Titan, and I haven't watched it yet, but I will someday. And then season 4 of My Hero Academia is just right around the corner. So as soon as that comes out, I will watch that. And I cannot wait to see it. I'm super excited and I am ready to watch it. And it's really nice to have that one too. I was kind of like, oh, okay, I got some pretty good list. I like that. Now, for other digital medias, this other one here called DC Universe. This one I cannot accept that option. The reason being is because I own most of the live action movies and animated movies and series of DC Comics. You heard me right. I own every single, well, almost. I own every best animated movies and TV shows and movies. And for me, there's just no point of getting a digital because I own almost everything. That's almost everything of physical DVDs and Blu-rays. And I prefer to own it physical. And even though DC Universe has their exclusives, like brand new shows like Titan and Swamp Thing, and we got the Harley Quinn animated series coming up. Was it Doom Patrol was another one? They're just like really small titles. There's like only a handful of titles that are exclusively to the DC Universe app. But unfortunately, it's just not worth the money, and I cannot do it because I own most of it on physical forms. And I just got the Batman animated series on Blu-ray, which is very nice. I'm very happy to own that. That is my baby. and that has been my childhood favorite of all time. And I cannot wait to get my hands on the Batman Beyond animated series on Blu-ray. That is going to be super exciting. And for another thing is Disney Plus. Disney Plus, I will accept, and it's different. The reason being is Disney, they now own Marvel Comics, they own the Muppets, they own the Pixar movies, and they own Star Wars, and they just purchased all the rights of 20th Century Fox movies. So they have everything. And they're going big too. So by the time Disney Plus is available on app and streaming service, you get to see exclusives of TV shows that'll be available on Disney Plus. We'll be getting to see a live action Star Wars series, which we've been waiting for years to happen. And Marvel Comics is currently doing their TV shows as well. You got like Winter Soldier and Falcon series. You got a Loki series. You got WandaVision series. A bunch of other shows that'll be available as well. So that is really different. I do not mind that at all, because that one has got a much bigger selections you can watch. So for Disney Plus, I will make an exception for purchasing that app. But for DC Universe only, there's just no point of spending it, because it's just DC itself. So I can't really do it. And lastly, there's a Warner Brothers streaming service that's in development right now, and they're focusing like all the Warner Brothers movies, including DC movies. They're trying to adding more stuff. So not only you get all the Warner Brothers stuff, but they're also going to add HBO with it, which I think that's a smart thing to do, because I do not mind having HBO with it as well. So it'll be a nice expansion. But maybe someday. I'm gonna have to do some little more digging about that one, but it's still pretty new and hasn't come out yet. So maybe someday we'll discuss about that. For my collecting wise, I'm more of a retro collector. I love collecting retro video games, and I love like buying old school Japanese anime series, and which is why I like to go to the video store and see if I can get my hands on some of the Japanese anime titles that no other company has the rights of owning it yet, to be released on Blu-ray. So there are certain anime titles I would like to own on DVD because they're pretty hard to find. And since we just lost 2 video stores on my hometown, it's been getting more and more difficult, which makes me worried that video stores are becoming extinct. And gosh, it's getting more and more difficult as it is, and I've just been focusing on Amazon deals and all that, and it's difficult. It really is. And I don't know. It's really sad that we're at a phase that digital media is now the new thing of the future. And that pains me because I still can't do that. For example, I refuse to purchase digital media on video games. Only buy physical copies of video games. I refuse to download games. So anything with PlayStation 4 or the Xbox or Nintendo Switch, if there are games that are digital, I'm not buying it. So, which brings up to the new generation consoles, that everything is going to be digital. If there's a come of age that all games will be digital download only, then will be at my limit. If we're coming to this age that most people are going to download games instead of purchasing physically, then I refuse to buy it. So if I hear a a video game company like Sony or Microsoft, their only intention is to be digital, I refuse to buy it. So if I hear anything that's no disc involved, I can't do it. It has to be physical copy only. I cannot buy digital anymore. I've done it before in the past, and it's not pretty. I don't like it. So for my Xbox 360, back in the day, I did bought digital games download in my Xbox 360, but in order to play your games that you own, you have to sign into your account on the internet in order for you to play it. So, for instance, if you turn on your game system of your Xbox 360, but you don't have internet access, but you did bought the digital medias that you rightfully own. But here's a problem. When I started turning on the system, I tried playing the game. It only allowed me to play the demo only of the game. So whenever I go in, it's only the demo. I can't play my full game experience. You can only play the demo only. That's because the internet is off. So in order to play your game, your full game access, you have to sign in on the internet in order for you to play the games that you own, which is a really bad move for me, because that's kind of the problem for me on buying digital media, because you need to have internet access. And I don't like that, because like, what if the internet is down or what if I used up all my data, and what if I can't afford the internet anymore? There'd be times where I would prefer to own physical movies and games, so that way I'm not connected to the internet whatsoever. Just the movie, just the game, no internet interruptions whatsoever. And I prefer that way. So that's why I cannot buy video games digital anymore, because I have issues on those. So if the new system is going to be digital only, then my collecting games is pretty much over. The only thing I'll be buying is mostly retro stuff. That'll be the only thing I would focus on. So for going back on physical forms, there are two companies that I would highly recommend. I just recommended for you guys to check out, called Shout Factory. Not a sponsor or anything like that, but I wanted to share with you guys that Shout Factory, they focus on physical Blu-rays and DVDs, and they focus on cult classic movies and horror movies, sometimes Japanese animes, if they have the rights for it. And a bunch of their titles are amazing as well. For instance, a while back they came out with Transformers, the animated movie. That was when Shout Factory got the rights for those. And they went in, cleaned up the picture, and it looks amazing. Like when you're watching the movie, it looked like it just came out in theaters. It's amazing. And the animation is very well done, and they fixed the cuts and the fixes. And if you're lucky, you might get something that's like limited edition. So for example, there's a cult classic movie called Nightbreed, which is written and directed by Clive Barker. Nightbreed, I can't remember the whole story, but it was available on Netflix at the time, and it was the director's cut. And what happened is, in the original movie, there were a lot of flaws and a lot of struggles and development hell that they were in the process of. There was a lot of problems when they were making a movie. So when they came out with a director's cut years later, they were able to fix the movie from everything. And they've made some fixes. They made some like a redubbing the movie, and they cleaned up the picture. They were able to find lost footage and restored it and cleaned it and put it in the movie to make a proper ending of the movie, and all of that. That was why Shout Factory knows what they're doing, and they're really good at it too. If I can figure out the titles I have there, I have Sam Raimi's Dark Man, Lord of the Illusions, Slither, The Lawnmower Man. Let's see. Oh, Bill and Ted, which is my personal favorite movie of all time. Like 1 and 2, like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey. And, oh my god, I freaking love that. Love those movies so much. I grew up heavily on those movies. They are amazing, and I cannot wait for the third movie to come out. That is super exciting. As soon as it comes out, I would love to review the movie to you guys. I just cannot wait for Bill and Ted 3. That is going to be crazy. I got other ones like, Midnight Run, Roadhouse, and Army of Darkness, and I think that's about it. I can't really see the titles from here, but those are examples of the movies that I owned. That's accompanied by Shout Factory. And there's another company that I would recommend. It's called Discotheque Media. That company focuses on Japanese anime titles, and you can look it up on Facebook. They'll keep you updated in postings, which, by the way, I'm not a sponsor. I'm just helping out, and I wanted to share with you guys. Discotheque Media, you can check it out on Facebook, and they'll keep you postings on announcements of certain anime titles that they got the license for. So, for example, I just purchased Cutie Honey it came out like in the 90s. They were able to get the rights so they can release it on Blu-ray for the first time. So I just purchased it, and it's still on the way on this day. I haven't received it yet, but I will someday. They're kind of like Shout Factory kind of way. Their focus is physical medias, not digital, physical. And there are certain titles that you can't get on DVD anymore because they're really hard to find. But if you go to the video store, if you have a video store around, you might get lucky that you can get your hands on those titles. I'm trying to think what other titles I own. For Discotheque Media, I own Street Fighter 2, the animated movie, on Blu-ray, which is amazing. And I got The Castle of Cagliostro, which is the first Hayao Miyazaki film, on Blu-ray. That one's also amazing. And I own Fatal Fury, which is also by the same company, and some Lupin the Third title, and Wicked City was another one. I think that's about it. I can't really see I was kind of looking at my bookshelf up there, and I can't really see it that well. But those are examples that's owned by Discotheque Media, and that company is amazing as well. And they know what they're doing on their physical formats, and I'm looking forward to on buying more stuff later in the future. So I'm pretty excited to own those titles. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys. This is something that I wanted to discuss with you guys, of how I feel about physical media versus digital media. But yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in to the show, guys, and I'm really happy that I get to share my thoughts and opinions. And what's your guys' thoughts and opinions about physical media versus digital media? And tell me, why do you like digital only, or why do you like physical only? I would be happy to respond back to you guys personally of on certain titles, of this one should be owned physical then owning digital, those kinds of questions. But thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, my name is Zach Probst, and this is Zap Chat. Until next time, good night.